Candus, and in today's QuickBooks tips and tricks, we're on video number 7 of our series, only this one and the next one, and we're done. So this video is really about reports. You've been taking the time, you learned about the navigation, you learned why you're doing it, you learned if you need to create invoices and how to enter your income and your expenses and your credit cards and reconciling all this stuff. So this all led up to your reports. You've been seeing the reports throughout it, but today we're going to get into it. We're going to talk a little bit more about cash versus accrual, why that matters. We are going to look at the profit and loss, the balance sheet, and the statement of cash flow. And this is where really the management comes into place. So I can't tell you what business decisions to make or what to do differently, but I can teach you how to get the reports. And if you ever want to add something so you get more detail, how to do that. Where do the names come up at? Like, what's going on? This is the final area really of learning in the series, reports. Why do you use them? How do you do it? You've done all this work. So I'll share a quick story with you about, I'm trying to think how long it's been, almost 2 years, I think. This coming year will be 2 years ago. I was at my hairdresser, she was cutting my hair, and we were talking about stuff, and she knows I do QuickBooks, teach QuickBooks, and I told her, I said, you need to get a location closer to town, because I live like out in the boonies one way. I live at 4,000 feet on 2 acres in the country. So you may or may not know that when you look at my videos, but I'm a country girl a little bit. So I drive to her house, takes me like an hour to get there. And she's in the country on a totally different area. So I said, you should get a location closer to town. I could refer you a lot more people. Plus, selfishly, it'd be easier for me. And she laughed and she's like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable and different things. And so I said, well, why does that make you uncomfortable? And she's like, well, because I don't know how much I make. Because I said to her, the space rent made her nervous, the insurance made her nervous. And I said, hey, because she is able to work out of a studio at her home. And I'm like, well, how many cuts and colors, pedicures, manicures, all the different things she does it take for you to make a certain amount? And she goes, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? And she said, I don't know. I'm like, how do you prepare for your taxes? She said, QuickBooks. And I'm like, oh, but what do you mean you don't know? And she said, I input all my information, I back it up, I send it to my tax professional, and that's it. I'm like, you've never pulled a report out of QuickBooks? She goes, nope. She had been using QuickBooks for like 5 or 6, maybe even longer than that, years at this point. So I'm like, hurry up and get my hair done. I got to show you this. I got to show you this, because I get excited about entrepreneurship. If you don't know that about me, I am not a tax professional. I'm not an accountant. I'm an entrepreneur who teaches businesses. I'm a business consultant. I learn about your business and then I customize QuickBooks for it. That's my specialty. So I'm like, what? This was like, I couldn't believe it. You didn't pull a report? It woke me up. It really woke me up. And so I showed her the 3 clicks. She pulled it up. And I didn't just show her what she had going on that year, but I had showed her all the years she had ever entered in QuickBooks, which was like 5 or 6 years. And she's like, oh, that's what I've been making? And I go, yeah. And she got emotional and I got emotional. And on the drive home that day, I'm driving home and I'm like, I will not, that's why I started doing my tips and tricks and my online courses. So I'm like, I don't want another entrepreneur to not know how to pull these reports. 3 clicks, click, click, click. That's it. And it really inspired me. So that's why I share that story with you. That's why, to me, reports are so vitally important. But also, you got to have all the information in there so that when you pull the report, you can actually read it and get some results. So that's why, up to this point, we've been focusing on the different areas of QuickBooks that you need to do so you can get to today. All right? So thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me. I hope you've been enjoying it. Feel free to comment. I always love to read you guys' comments. If you have questions, so let's jump in. I'll show you now how do you pull the reports, the same thing I taught her, but we're also going to talk about cash versus accrual basis and understanding what you need. Again, if you have more questions, feel free to talk to your tax professional. Let's go. Come on. Let's get started. All right. So let's go in. I'm going to first show you the 3 clicks that I talked about in the video. So this is reports, company and financials, profit and loss standard. Then you can choose whatever you want. You can pick last fiscal year. This is a sample file that I use for my training purposes. Let's talk about a couple things first. So one of the things I told you I was going to teach you is the difference between cash and accrual basis. You'll notice over here to the left, QuickBooks will always let you know what type of basis, accounting basis, that it's using to generate the reports. So This is really important. It might not seem like a big deal, but it is, because people get confused. So cash basis basically means, in layman's terms, the simplest way I can explain it is at the moment you deposit the money into your account, it's income. And at the moment you write a check for it, it is an expense on your profit and loss. So a lot of times people will say to me, Candace, what I don't get is like my profit and loss isn't matching my bank account. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, you always want to make sure that what basis you're on. If you want it to match your bank account, you want to be on cash basis. And accrual basis, which is the other type, if you go under customize reports, you'll notice there's accrual basis and there is cash basis. So accrual basis, I'll click on that for you so you can see. You'll notice the numbers changed a little bit. Accrual basis has to do at the moment that you create an invoice for your customers, meaning an accounts receivable, that is income to you. At the moment that you use, say, accounts payable or inner bills, it's an expense to you. It still accounts for the expenses that you put in through your checking account, but accrual basis is at the moment it happens. So if you went and purchased something at a supplier, the moment they invoice you, that's expense. And the moment you invoice your customers, that is income. So that's the difference. It's whether you want to go based off of when you invoice somebody, when you pick up the supplies, or if you want to pay your taxes based off of the moment you actually get paid and the moment that you actually spend the money. Now, one thing to know is, if I'm going to show you this little, you can Google and do some research, but you have to do accrual basis under a couple conditions. One, if you have over $5 million in sales per year, or if you have inventory, stock of inventory, or you sell items and your gross receipts are over $1 million. So if you have inventory and you have over $1 million that you do in a year, you need to be on accrual basis. Now, I am not a tax professional. I'm not a CPA. I'm an entrepreneur. So if you're not sure which one of these to choose, talk to your tax professional and have them help you make that decision. So the purpose of a profit and loss gives you your income and expenses. It basically lets you know what's happening within your business. Now, I come from, as an entrepreneur, a place of, well, what does this do for me as an entrepreneur? And what you want to make sure, I'm going to change this back to cash basis, is the first area are where these names come from is what you title your accounts. So consulting income is under the chart of accounts. If you go under list chart of accounts, under my income category here, you'll see income. You'll see these are the titles I've given those different income categories. Those titles are what shows up here to the left. So if you ever see something and you don't want it to be called that, you actually can go into your chart of accounts and change it. If you're using invoices, it depends where your item is linked. I'll show you that real quick under items. If you have items, wherever you have what this account here is called, this income account, that item, when you're using an invoice, is going to show up here. So it's a little back history. If that doesn't make sense, feel free to message me and I can explain it in another video in more detail. Or I do have other videos on my channel and on my website that go into more detail on that. So the first area is your income. You choose what this says. Now, I'll give you two recommendations. One, keep it as simple as possible so that you can look at it and quickly know what it means. Consulting income, okay. Lamps, rental income, online courses. Now, these don't all typically go in a normal business, but they're samples of things I've done over time when I was creating my QuickBooks tips and tricks. So what it does is you pick your time frame. So a profit and loss is from a period of time. You choose the beginning, you choose the end. It can be over months, it can be quarter, it can be 1 month, whatever you choose, your income will show up. It totals it if you have different types of income. Anytime you want more detail, you can double click and you'll find out where that number comes from. Then if you have cost of goods, it comes off that and it gives you what your gross profit is. If you don't have cost of goods has to do with it cost me this to produce this income. That's how that works. Then next, what you're going to see is your expenses. These are basically considered more administrative expenses or other expenses, typically if you're using cost of goods, that are not included in your cost to produce the product or service you're offering. You know, technically, in general, for an average entrepreneur, they don't even use cost of goods. They pretty much only use expenses. So you'll have your gross profit or your income there. Then you will come down, you'll have all of your expenses. And then at the very bottom, you have other income, other expenses. This is miscellaneous, not related to your income stream. And then you have your net income. What is the total that you've made during that time frame? So what it's saying is there were gross sales or total sales of $311. All the expenses came out, and at the end, the business was profitable of $6,016.87. Most people use this statement to know if they've either gained or lost money, whether they're the owner or an investor. So what I recommend typically you do as an entrepreneur, I can't tell you what decisions to make, but I can give you some more tips on when you're looking at your profit and loss to make decisions. So you can choose time frame. Whatever time frame you want, you can choose it by a month. You can choose it for the whole year. What you're then going to do is basically go through and say, okay, I have this much money as this type of income. I have this much money as this type of income. Where's the main source of my income coming? And then look at your expenses to see in relation to that income, is there any adjustments you can make? How can you increase your income? Or with your expenses, you might go through, now this is a sample file, it's not an exact business. So it says, oh, okay, I have insurance of $1,855, but I only made $11,311 in income. So what can I either do to lower my insurance, or what can I do to increase my income? Where should I be focusing my time and energy? Where is the most amount of my income coming from, and how much time is it taking? It's just a way for you to really manage and grow your business. Now, without looking at your reports, I can't give you any tips, but this is a sample file. So I would just go through and I would look at each thing. Where am I spending money? Am I spending too much money on meals and entertainment or fuel expense? Or, where is my income coming? That's the main thing. So like with my husband's construction business, when we looked at his reports to manage and grow the business, to make business decisions, one of the things we did is we were actually able under reports to go and look at profit and loss by job. And what that allowed us to do was go back and look at each individual job, see how much income had come in, how much expenses had gone out, and go, oh, these types of jobs we're not charging enough for. Or that kind of thing. One of the things I talk about in some of my courses and in different parts of my training is if you're going to either hire a new employee or buy a piece of equipment, you need to figure out how much more revenue are you going to be able to generate by hiring those people or buying that equipment, and then go back and actually look at your profit and loss and say, okay, can I truly pay for those expenses? Does it make sense? I was raised by entrepreneurs, and they were in the construction field, and a lot of times at the end of the year, they'd go out and they would just buy equipment because they thought it would help them with their taxes. But in the end, they still had to pay for that equipment. Does it always make sense? Those are the kinds of things I want you to think about when you're thinking about the mindset behind managing your business. It's more than just putting the numbers in, but it's really going in and looking at the numbers and taking the time to really see where's your income and your expenses going. I always recommend keeping your profit and loss, which I said earlier, simple, but also make it manageable to make decisions. Don't make it so complicated that you can't read it because it's pages and pages long. You can't manage a business that way. Yes, you can come up here and hit the collapse button and it will help you simplify it, but don't make it so complicated you can't read it. That's my biggest tip. All right. So as far as a profit and loss is concerned, understand if you do cash basis versus accrual basis, you can always come in here and change it to see what the differences are. Accrual basis is, hey, I've invoiced this much money, I've spent this much money, that's where I stand. Cash basis is, I've received this much money, I've spent this much money. So it's good once you learn those things to go back and forth and kind of look at what's happening in your business. Now, during the year, if you want to get a little fancy and you really want to see what's happening in your business, you can actually drop down these columns and you can choose it by the year. By the quarter. So you have the whole year as your date range, but then you're also choosing it by the quarter, and you can see how much did you do in each individual quarter. Now, a lot of these videos, I created more of the videos back in July and August, teaching you the tips and tricks. So there's more data in there. But if you're using this for a real business and you put all your data in for an entire year, you should be able to go back and see How much income, net income did I get? What was happening in my business? You can also drop this down by the month. You can look at it month to month. You can also go in and click customize, and you can go, let me change this back to year first, so yearly. Then you go under customize, you can actually look at previous period. So what that allows you to do is you can look at year to year. If you only had picked a quarter, let's go into this quarter, it would show you this year's quarter. It would also show you the previous year's quarter. So you can kind of start messing around with this and seeing, okay, what is the different time frames? Now, I don't have anything in there to show you. So you have previous period and previous year. You also have year to date. So you can choose whatever reports you want. It starts giving you more data. So if you go this fiscal year, I'm just kind of showing you what your different options are that you can choose from the different reports. It also, if you pick previous period and you pick dollar amount, it will actually show you your change in dollar amounts. So you can see like from one year to the next or one quarter to the next, what happened. So if you drop this back down and you do it by quarter, I might be getting a little over your head. Watch this part of the video again slowly, but you can actually pick your time frames and you can pick and see, okay, what was those changes in those quarters? So this is showing you the first quarter of 2016, what happened in the previous quarter. So that happened to be in 2015, October to December, and what was the dollar amount of change? And it will go through each of those time frames that you have, okay? So if that's too confusing, don't worry, that might be an advanced thing to learn over time. I'm gonna change this back to year. I'm gonna change this back to last fiscal year because that's when I have most of my data. So just know that all of these things in these reports, go back, rewatch what I told you, click pause it, and you'll get to learn about your business. So this is the first financial statement, known as the profit and loss or the income statement. We are going to go now into the next one. Just know you can come here under company and financial under reports, and there's profit and loss standard, detail, year to date, previous year comparison, some of the things I was just showing you. It's already customized here to pick the job and the class. Now I'm going to show you the balance sheet. So come in here, look at all these reports, and just start clicking on them and getting familiar with them. That's the only way you'll learn. So when we were looking at the profit and loss, it is for a date range. You pick the beginning you want it to show you to the end, whether that's a month, a year, a quarter, whatever it is. The way the balance sheet works is you pick an actual time frame as of an exact moment, as of December 31st of 2015. This is exactly where your balance sheet sits. And really the purpose of a balance sheet, it lets you know basically what you have as far as resources, your assets, but also lets you know your obligations, which are your liabilities. So you'll notice that on the balance sheet, it is in order of what's considered liquidity. So first are your bank accounts. Those are liquid cash. Then your accounts receivable. Then you get into your current assets, your fixed, which are your current assets. Then you get into your fixed assets, which are vehicles, buildings, anything that you own. Then you get into your liabilities. That would be your credit cards, any sales tax, any payroll taxes, any long-term loans you have, any short-term loans, any loans, anything you owe, those are considered liabilities. And then it has your equity on here. This is how much do you have value in your business from year to year, are your retained earnings, your current net income, your owner contribution, if you had any beginning balance equity that you brought into the business. It's all here. So you have your assets. You can subtract out your liabilities, and that gives you your owner's equity. You can also say it as your liabilities plus your equity gives you your assets. So that's just the equation. Don't get too stressed about that. Just know the top is going to let you know what your total assets are. See here on this example, it's $19,750.10. All of the liabilities, and then with your equity, you end up getting back to the $19,750.10. These two have to balance. And the cool thing about QuickBooks is it does both sides always for you, so you'll never be off. The main thing you want to look at on here is, okay, where are my assets? How much do I owe? And then what's my owner's equity? The profit and loss, a lot of times what people get confused on is it only has your revenue or your income and your expenses. It does not show you how much money is in your bank account. It doesn't show you your accounts receivable. It doesn't show how much you owe on a credit card. So you could have put a bunch of expenses in when you entered your credit card charges, which we already covered, but you owe on that credit card. So your profit and loss will show all the expenses, but it may not match your bank account because you haven't actually paid for those credit card charges yet. You also maybe owe on a loan, a line of credit, whatever it is, it's going to be showing here. So and if you took money out of your business, depending on what type of entity structure you are, if you're taking money out, it's not expense. It's actually owner's equity that you're taking out of your business. So what happens is you maybe took that money out of your business, but it's not showing up on your profit and loss, so your bank account won't balance. Where the third financial statement comes into play, it's called your statement of cash flow. And what that does is it fills in the gap between what's happened on your profit and loss, what's happening on your balance sheet. So let me show you that next. So this is the balance sheet. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below the video or send me a message and I will do my best to answer your questions. If you go under reports, company and financial, the statement of cash flow. And what this allows you to do is to see really what your liquidity is as well. You get to actually see what's happened. The profit and loss is a time frame. The balance sheet is a snapshot at one exact moment, whatever date you pick. And the statement of cash flow is a time frame, just like the profit and loss. You pick a beginning and you pick an end. What this is going to show you is what was your net income. That's the numbers are coming from your profit and loss. So in a typical business, if you're on cash or on accrual basis, your profit and loss and your balance sheet are going to be on accrual. They're what's happening. And then your statement of cash flow is cash basis, and so it fills in the gaps. If your profit and loss is also on cash basis, you may not see as big of a difference in your statement of cash flow in comparison to your profit and loss. So I hope that makes sense. Just know the statement of cash flow is more about what's happening with your operating activities. It's your income coming from your profit and loss. It's your accounts receivable, your credit cards. What have you paid down? What have you collected? Have you bought any assets? And then what other financial activities have you done within your business? It has your beginning cash balance and then your ending cash balance. So it's allowing you to see what actually happened on the cash side of your business. It basically also lets you know what's changed within your assets, your liabilities, and your equity. So I hope that makes sense. The real point to getting these reports, and the main report that most entrepreneurs use on a regular basis is going to be and it's getting familiar with learning how to look at it, learning how to read it, going in and saying, okay, you know what? I set up my income, but all I have maybe is a category called sales. And that isn't really helping me make managerial decisions. Go in to your chart of accounts, list chart of accounts, and go in down here and create new income accounts, and start creating them under what you want to see them as a business owner, as a manager. So I always say your tax professional looks at your account, your profit and loss, probably annually, maybe quarterly, but they're not the one who's making business decisions. They can give you tips, they can help you out, but you're really the one in charge of your business. So go in and create income accounts that make it where you can understand it. Now, don't have a gazillion different accounts. Have the main categories that you want to be able to track. So if you're an online business, you're going to want to have maybe your different courses that you're selling, so you can actually see how much you made in each of those courses. You might also want to have an account for, refunds, so you can see how many people actually got money back if they got refunds, if you're in that type of industry. If you're in construction, pick accounts for the different services that you provide. Maybe you do remodels. Maybe, like my husband's in flooring, so he has installation, refinish, things like that. You just want to go in and you want to pick what type of business you're in. What categories do you need to make or have to make business decisions, okay? That's really what it comes down to. And then the same is true for your expenses. Yes, what expenses can you write off? But also, what expenses do you need to see to be able to manage your business. A great idea is to talk to your tax professional and to get a list of what things they're already writing off for you, and then add those to QuickBooks, and then add some additional ones if you need it. But you don't need to break out office supplies into pencils and paper. You really just call that office supplies. And your utilities, unless you really need it, you don't necessarily need to break out your water versus your electric versus your whatever other utilities you have. Yes, telephone is different than necessarily electric. It really depends what your tax professional needs, but what you need to manage and grow your business. So I hope thinking about the mindset of your reports, realizing you've done all this work to get to the point, you've been doing all your data entry, you've been creating your invoices, you've been doing all this work to get to this point. Now, one last report I want to share with you, if you're using it, is your customer reports. So if you have customers who owe you, you really want to be on top of your accounts receivable. When I worked for a multi-million-dollar company, the owner he had multiple locations, and he would talk to his managers on a regular basis, really keeping up on your accounts receivable. Because what can happen is if you're not keeping track, you're not applying your credits properly, you can get a real mess. So that's one thing to think about as far as reports. Go through here and just click around. There's all kinds of stuff. Now, if you're very brand new to learning about reports, another tip that I have for you is to go to what's called the Report Center. So you go into Reports, Report Center, and this is something that QuickBooks created, Intuit created, to help you look at the reports. If you don't know what they are, to just go click on them. You can actually go in here and see samples of what the reports are going to look like. You can scroll through and you can decide. They have a couple different design styles of looking through the reports. You can do this one. You can do this, which is a list view, but it gives you a synopsis of what they're going to look like. You can pick time frames. You can favorite them. You can do all those kinds. You can pick this option as well. So whatever one you want, you just scroll through, you pick what, it gives you a little sample of what it's going to look like. You go over here to the left and you can go through and you can look at all the different types of reports that QuickBooks offers. If you find a report that you really love, you can actually memorize it. They have some memorized for you. So what you do is when you pull a report, if you really love it, once you have it all set up, you can actually click Memorize, give it a title. So we'll just dash Candus. We'll put on the end of here. And then when you go here, you can actually have your memorized reports down here for you to easily find. Now that's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to give you too much. I want to give you enough information in these videos so that you can make decisions, use it, optimize it. But I also don't want to give you so much, hopefully I didn't today, that you feel overwhelmed. If you feel overwhelmed, feel free to watch this video as many times as you need. Fast forward, rewind, pause it, go in, click around. I really create these videos to be of service to you, to help you with your business. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like it and share it. There is a subscribe to my channel. I also have weekly tips and tricks that I email out, so if you don't want to miss any, feel free to follow the link below and access it. And I love helping you guys. So anytime you have questions, feel free to email me or comment below, and I will create a video for you guys. I will see you in the next video. That is the last one in this mindset series, and it's really more about how do you stay consistent with your data entry? How do you back up your QuickBooks, which is vitally important. It'll be a much shorter video than this one. This is probably the longest in the whole series because there's a lot to talk about. But don't forget to back up. How do you stay consistent? How do you be patient with yourself? I will see you guys again soon. Bye.